If you are drawn to stories of love, mystery, and magic, subscribe and let the night begin. The knife pressed against her throat was not cold. It was warm. Warm with the body heat of the man who held it. Warm with the blood of the guard he had killed to reach her. Warm with the impossible truth she had been running from for 3 years. "Do not scream," whispered the assassin, "or I will do more than mark that pretty neck." Princess Zara did not scream, not because she was brave, because she recognized his voice. The same voice that had whispered poetry to her beneath the fig trees. The same voice that had promised to return. The same voice that had gone silent on the night her father announced the massacre. "Elias," she breathed. The knife drew back. Just a fraction. Just enough for her to feel the absence like a wound. "Do not say that name," he said. "That man is dead." She turned, slowly, carefully. Her silk sleeping shift whispered against the stone floor. The lamp on her bedside table cast everything in shades of amber and shadow. He stood before her in the dark leathers of the Eastern Rebellion. His face was thinner than she remembered, sharper. A new scar cut across his left cheekbone, silver against brown skin. His eyes, those honey-colored eyes that had once looked at her like she was the sunrise, were now hard as agates. But it was him. It was him. "You were dead," she said. "They told me you were dead." "They told you many things." His voice was flat, empty. The voice of a man who had scraped out his own heart and replaced it with purpose. "They told you I conspired against your father. They told you I was executed at dawn. They told you to forget me and marry the Emir. I never believed them. You wore his ring at the engagement ceremony." The words hit her like stones. She looked down at her hand. Bare, dark. She had stopped wearing the Emir's ruby 3 months ago when the nightmares began. But Elias did not know that. He had not been there. "I did what I had to do to survive," she said. "So did I." He stepped closer, close enough that she could smell him. Not the sandalwood and ink of the poet she had loved. Something sharper. Smoke. Steel. The metallic tang of old blood. "I am not here to kiss your feet, princess," he said. "I am here because the rebellion needs something only you can give. And if I refuse?" His hand moved to the dagger at his belt. Not threatening. Resting. A reminder. "Then I walk out that window and you never see me again." That does not sound like a choice. Is not. Zara looked at the window behind him. The curtains billowed in the desert wind. Beyond them, the moon hung low and yellow over the palace gardens, the same gardens where he had kissed her for the first time, 3 years ago, in a different life. "What do you need?" she asked. Elias reached into his tunic and pulled out a small box, carved from bone, sealed with black wax. When he broke the seal and opened the lid, the air changed, grew heavy, grew cold. Inside, nestled on a bed of black silk, lay a veil, but not the kind worn by brides or widows. This veil was made of threads that seemed to drink the light, dark as a moonless sky. And when Zara looked at it, something inside her chest whispered a word she did not understand. "Devour." "What is this?" she whispered. "The Cursed Veil of Laylat," Elias said, "forged by a sorcerer 500 years ago, woven from shadow and silence and the last breath of a dying queen. Whoever wears it becomes invisible to all eyes, except the one who loves them most." "Why would I need to be invisible?" Elias closed the box. The heaviness lifted. Zara sucked in a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Because tomorrow at dusk, the Emir arrives to claim his bride," he said. "And before midnight, My commanders will storm the palace." Her blood turned to ice. "You mean to assassinate my father?" "I mean to end a tyrant," Elias said. "Your father burned my village, killed my mother, sold my sisters to slavers. He has been poisoning this kingdom for 20 years, and you know it. He is still my father. He sold you to a man old enough to be your grandfather for 50 chests of gold." She had no answer for that, because it was true. All of it was true. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Elias opened the box again. He lifted the veil carefully, reverently, as though it were a living thing that might bite. The dark fabric cascaded over his fingers like liquid night. "Wear this during the ceremony," he said. "When the Emir tries to place his ring on your finger, the veil will make you invisible to every guard in the room." And then he looked at her, really looked, and for a moment, just a moment, she saw the boy she had loved beneath the scars, the one who had written her poems on fig bark tea, the one who had promised to build her a house by the sea. "And then I will come for you," he said. "Before the killing starts, before the blood flows, I will come for you, and I will take you away from all of this." Away to where? Away to somewhere your father's name means nothing, where you can be Zara, just Zara. Not a princess, not a bride, not a bargaining chip. Tears burned behind her eyes. She refused to let them fall. "And if I say no?" Elias tucked the veil back into the box. He held it out to her. "Then I walk out that window. The rebellion attacks anyway. And when the walls fall, you will be on the wrong side of the slaughter." Zara took the box. The bone was warm from his hands. She could feel something pulsing inside it. Not a heartbeat, but something like one. Something hungry. "You are asking me to betray my family. I am asking you to choose." The silence stretched between them. Somewhere in the palace, a clock struck midnight. The wedding was in 18 hours. "Go," she whispered. "I need time." Elias turned toward the window. He paused with one foot on the sill. "Zara." She looked up. "I never stopped loving you," he said, "even when I was learning to hate everything else." Then he was gone. The curtains billowed once, twice, and settled. Zara stood alone in her chamber with a cursed veil in her hands and a dead man's confession burning in her chest. Outside, the desert wind whispered her name. She did not sleep. The hours crawled past like wounded snakes. Every creak of the palace timbers made her breath catch. Every gust of wind against her shutters sounded like footsteps. She sat on her silk cushions with the bone box in her lap and traced the shape of his face on the inside of her eyelids. At the third hour of the night, she opened the box. The veil pulsed, not with light, with darkness, with absence. The air around it grew thick, heavy, oppressive. She reached out to touch it, and her fingers tingled as though she had plunged them into ice water. "Devour," whispered the thing inside her chest again. She closed the box. At dawn, her handmaidens came to prepare her for the wedding. They bathed her in rose water and jasmine oil. They braided her hair with threads of gold. They painted her eyes with kohl and her lips with crushed pomegranate. Zara sat perfectly still, perfectly obedient, perfectly empty. "You are so beautiful," whispered her youngest handmaiden, a girl of 14 who still believed in happy endings. "The Emir will love you." The Emir will be dead by midnight, Zara thought, and so might I. At noon, she asked to be left alone. The handmaidens curtsied and withdrew. Zara locked the door, drew the curtains, and knelt before the bone box. She lifted the veil. It was lighter than she expected, almost weightless. The fabric slipped through her fingers like water, like shadow, like a promise she was afraid to keep. "Show me," she whispered. And the veil answered. Visions flooded her mind. Not images, impressions. A woman screaming. A blade falling. A child running through burning streets. The face of her father, twisted with rage. The face of Elias, twisted with grief. And beneath it all, a voice. Old. Cracked as sun-baked clay. The veil chooses its wearer. It does not serve the weak. It does not serve the fearful. It serves the one who has nothing left to lose. Zara opened her eyes. The veil lay in her hands, patient as a snake. Nothing left to lose. She thought of her mother, dead of a broken heart when Zara was 12. She thought of her father, who had never looked at her as anything but an asset. She thought of Elias, who had loved her and lost her and come back as a ghost wearing a killer's face. "I have nothing left to lose," she said aloud. The veil trembled, and then it settled. At dusk, Zara walked to the great hall. The palace blazed with torchlight. 200 guests had gathered, nobles, generals, merchants from distant lands. They wore silk and jewels and smiles that did not reach their eyes. They had come to watch a girl be sold. Her father stood at the throne, resplendent in crimson and gold. He smiled when he saw her, a predator's smile. "My daughter," he said, "you honor our house." "I honor our debts," she replied. "There is a difference." His smile faltered, but before he could respond, the doors opened again. The Emir entered. He was older than his portraits, 70 at least, with yellowed eyes and liver-spotted hands. His robes were too heavy for the heat, his crown too large for his head. He looked like a child playing dress-up in a dead man's clothes. But when he looked at Zara, his eyes gleamed. "The bride," he said, "more beautiful than the paintings." "The paintings were flattering," Zara said. "I am not." A ripple of laughter ran through the crowd. The Emir's face darkened, but her father stepped in quickly, guiding the old man toward the ceremonial dais. Zara followed, her heart hammered against her ribs. The bone box was hidden in the folds of her gown. The veil was pressed against her skin. "Not yet," she told herself. "Not yet." The Imam began the prayers. Zara did not hear them. She was watching the shadows at the edges of the hall, watching for movement, watching for him. "Do you, Princess Zara, accept this union before God and witnesses?" She looked at the Emir, at her father, at the 200 faces waiting for her to say yes. "I have a gift for my bridegroom," she said. Commotion rippled through the crowd. The Emir frowned. Her father stepped forward. "Zara, this is not the time." "It is exactly the time." She reached into her gown and pulled out the bone box. She opened it. The room went cold. The torches flickered. The candles guttered. The shadows stretched and twisted and began to move. "What sorcery is this?" the Emir demanded. Zara lifted the veil. The dark fabric unfurled like a living thing, reaching for her face, her hair, her skin. She felt it settle against her like a second layer of flesh. And then she disappeared. Gasps. Dot. Screams. The guests stumbled back. The guards drew their swords, looking frantically for an enemy they could not see. "Where is she?" her father roared. Zara stood in the center of the chaos, invisible, trembling, alive. "Now," whispered the veil. "Now." Diamond. And from the shadows at the edge of the hall, Elias stepped forward. He was not alone. A dozen rebels emerged behind him, men and women in dark leathers, their faces masked, their blades drawn. They moved in perfect silence, surrounding the guests, cutting off the exits. The Eastern Rebellion sends its regards, Elias said. The Emir stumbled backward. Guards! Guards! But the guards could not find their target. They swung blindly at shadows, at smoke, at nothing. And one by one, the rebels disarmed them. Zara watched from her invisible hiding place. She saw her father's face shift from rage to fear to something that looked almost like grief. She saw the Emir collapse to his knees, weeping. She saw Elias stride toward the throne like a man walking through a dream. You, the Sultan spat. The poet's son? I should have killed you myself. You tried, Elias said. You failed, and now your kingdom falls. He raised his blade. Stop. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Zara realized with a start that it was her own. She pulled the veil from her face. The shadows released her. She materialized in front of the throne, her hand outstretched, her eyes blazing. I said, stop. Elias froze. His sword hovered in the air, inches from the Sultan's throat. Zara, what are you doing? I am stopping this. He deserves to die. Perhaps. She looked at her father, truly looked at him for the first time in years. She saw the man behind the crown. The fear, the weakness, the desperate, pathetic clawing for power that had poisoned everything he touched. But not like this, she said. Not in front of me. Not with his daughter wearing a cursed veil and his blood on your hands. Zara. If you kill him, you become him. Her voice cracked. You told me once that you wanted to build a better world. You cannot build it on murder. Elias lowered his sword. His golden eyes were wet. Then what do you propose? Zara turned to her father. The Sultan stared at her as though seeing her for the first time. Perhaps he was. You will abdicate, she said. What? You will sign a decree transferring the throne to a council of elders. You will disband the secret police. You will release the political prisoners. And you will go into exile. And if I refuse? Zara held up the veil. It pulsed in her hands, hungry and patient. Then I will make you invisible, she said. Not the kind of invisible that hides you from your enemies. The kind that hides you from everyone. You will walk through this palace for the rest of your life, screaming for help, and no one will see you. No one will hear you. No one will hear you. No one will remember your name. The Sultan's face went gray. You would not. I would, she said, because you made me this way. You taught me that love is a weapon, that tenderness is weakness, that the only thing that matters is power. She stepped closer to him. I am done being your pawn. The silence stretched. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called. Then the Sultan laughed, a broken, bitter sound. You are your mother's daughter after all, he said. She would have been proud. He signed the decree. The palace did not fall. It transformed. The rebels lowered their blades. The guests stopped trembling. The guards stood down one by one as the Sultan's signed decree was read aloud in the great hall. The Emir fled before midnight, his 50 chests of gold abandoned in the courtyard. And Zara stood at the center of it all, the cursed veil clutched to her chest, her heart pounding with something that felt like hope and terror in equal measure. Elias found her on the western balcony, where the moonlight painted everything silver. You should have let me kill him, he said. No, Toll. She did not turn around. I should have let you love me 3 years ago, when we had the chance. He stepped up beside her. His shoulder brushed hers. Neither of them moved away. We have another chance now, he said. Do we? She looked at him, really looked. The scar on his cheek, the hardness in his jaw, the grief behind his eyes. You are not the boy I loved, Elias. You are someone else wearing his face. I am the same man who wrote you poems on fig bark. Dado Kamni. No, that man is dead. You told me so yourself. He flinched. It was small, almost invisible, but she saw it. Then let me learn to be someone new, he said. Someone worthy of you. Zara looked down at the veil in her hands. It had stopped pulsing. It lay still and dark, as though it had given everything it had. I am not the same either, she said. I stood in front of my father tonight and threatened to erase him from existence. I became something I did not recognize. You became strong. I became afraid. Elias took the veil from her hands. He set it on the stone railing between them. Then let us be afraid together, he said. Let us be new together. Let us walk away from this palace, and this crown, and this cursed thing, and simply be Zara and Elias. Two people who loved each other once, and want to try again. Tears slid down her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. What if we fail? Then we fail, he said. But at least we will have tried. At least we will have chosen each other instead of duty. At least we will have been brave. He held out his hand. She looked at it, at the calluses, the scars, the hand of a poet who had become a killer who was trying to become a man. She took it. His fingers closed around hers. Warm, dot, steady, real dot. Where will we go? She whispered. East, he said. The mountains. There is a valley there where the wild pomegranates grow. My mother used to tell me stories about it. Stories of what? Of second chances. He pulled her close, his arms wrapped around her. She pressed her face into his chest and felt his heart, still beating, still fighting, still hers. I love you, he said. I never stop. I know, she whispered. Me neither. Behind them, the cursed veil stirred in the moonlight. It rose from the railing, lifted by a wind that came from nowhere. And then it vanished. Not disappeared, vanished, as though it had never existed at all. Zara felt the absence like a fever breaking. The heaviness lifted from her chest. The whispers in her blood went silent. It is gone, she said. Elias looked at the empty railing, then at her. Perhaps it was never real, he said. Perhaps it was just a story we told ourselves to have the courage to change. Or perhaps, Zara said softly, it was real. And it chose to leave because its work was done. She looked up at the moon, at the stars, at the desert stretching endlessly toward the horizon. What happens now? She asked. Elias smiled. It was small, uncertain, but it was real. Now we walk. They left before dawn. No guards stopped them. No one raised an alarm. The palace slept around them, exhausted by its own near destruction. The new council of elders would govern in the sultan's absence. The prisoners would be freed by noon. The Emir's gold would feed the hungry. Zara carried nothing but the clothes on her back and the memory of a cursed veil that had shown her who she really was. Elias carried a single date wrapped in cloth, a tradition from his village, a symbol of hope for the journey ahead. They walked through the gates together. The guards saluted, not because they had to, because they wanted to. They know, Zara whispered. They know, Elias agreed. The desert opened before them, vast and indifferent and beautiful. The stars faded. The sky turned gold. The first rays of sunlight touched the dunes like a blessing. Tell me about the valley, Zara said. Elias took her hand. There is a river, he said, clear as glass, and trees that have been growing since before the first sultan was born. And at night, the fireflies are so thick they look like a second sky. It sounds like a dream. It is real, he said, us real as we are. She squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. Elias. Yes. She stopped walking, turned to face him. The rising sun set his scarred face on fire. I want to build a life with you, she said. Not a palace, not a kingdom, just a life. Small and quiet and ours. That is all I have ever wanted. He kissed her. It was not desperate, not hungry. It was gentle, tender, tender. A promise sealed with breath and warmth and the taste of salt. When they pulled apart, the sun had cleared the horizon. Ready? He asked. Zara looked back at the palace one last time. It stood on the hill behind them, golden and glorious and empty. Ready, she said. They walked east. The desert swallowed their footprints. The wind carried their laughter. And somewhere behind them, in a palace that no longer felt like a cage, a cursed veil that had never really existed dissolved into moonlight and memory. Some loves are built on poetry, some on survival, some on the slow, painful work of learning to trust again. Zara and Elias had all three. And in the end, that was enough. If this story stayed with you, subscribe for more tales from the 1001 Nights. The desert wind carries many secrets. Some of them are love, some of them are loss. But of them, all of them, begin with a single word spoken in the dark. Elias.